Okay, welcome to another podcast for Counseling Connections. I'm Stanley,
And I'm Tinger.
and we're here to give you counselor connections with real talk, which is real, relevant, and reliable information and strategies for Christian living today. So we're going to talk a little bit. We talked our last month's podcast focused on grief during the holidays. So this month we want to talk a little bit more about stress, and this is something that can be relatable to everyone.
So, we will start our podcast today with what is stress? Stress is an emotional pressure from things when we feel out of control. It's when we allow things to get out of control, then we start to feel that stress.
So that would be our common definition for today, something that's relatable once again to everyone. So when we talk about stress, this is the definition, the foundation that we'll use today to bring everyone together on that same page. So we're going to talk a little bit about four common guests that steal our joy at Christmas. So we know that generally guests are invited. But we also live in a real world, and we know sometimes guests just show up. And so these probably are your four common guests that show up because more than likely we're not inviting them. And we're going to start with what's the first one that generally steal our joy at Christmas? That's stress. And Tinder just gave you our common definition for stress. And, she said, once again, emotional pressure from things feeling out of control. So, in dealing with those stressors in our lives, we talk about things that help to basically shape our holidays. Well, actually, everybody has stress from the little babies when they're born to an individual when they're headed to the grave. So, stressors affect all of us, but just in different ways. And actually, stress can be healthy. It can be motivational, but then anything that's in excess can become overwhelming. So we're going to talk about the overwhelming side today, even though it's a part of our everyday lives. We're going to talk a little bit about the holiday stressors. And these are things that we all have participated in throughout our lives. And we obviously, if you're listening today or looking today, then you've made it through those stressors. But we're approaching the holiday season of Christmas, and we know people will be standing in line waiting to buy gifts. That can be a stressor. Or even after you get the gift, for some, then they say, okay, what about the wrapping of the gift? Then they go stand in another line, and they find themselves standing in another long line waiting to get their gifts wrapped. Or they may just say, oh, I have to do this myself at a later time at home. But those are some stressors that we typically don't think about, but they contribute to things that tend to steal our joy at Christmas. Greeting cards. Sometimes you'll have those greeting cards, and maybe the youngest generation may not understand that because they may not typically send out greeting cards, but the older generation sending out those greeting cards, I'm pretty sure you can relate. And if you have a lot of greeting cards, and then you realize, as they often will tell us on the news, if you want your packages to arrive or your cards to arrive, you need to have them out by this time. And sometimes we're in a rush or a panic to get out a large amount of greeting cards, regardless of what else we have on our plates to do. Just some examples. What about the holiday events? Holiday parties, Christmas parties. You go to those parties and you say, okay, I want to eat a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I want to sample a little bit of everything. For some of us, let's keep it real. We want to eat some of everything. But then some of the ones who are more conscientious, they say, but I don't want to gain any weight this holiday season. So you have the stress of when I go to the parties, things look good and I really want to eat it. But then the stress is if I eat it all, what happens to me after the holidays? So those are some stressors that people deal with typically during the holiday season. And those things really do have an impact on how people tend to appreciate and enjoy the Christmas holiday. Because if you're constantly overthinking and you're feeling like because of these things, I'm just so overwhelmed because of these stressors, then you fail to really enjoy the moment. You fail to enjoy the beautiful holiday season, and before you realize it, it has already come and it has gone. So we wanted to talk a little bit about those stressors and preparing yourselves, and just kind of there. And there are others. Are there any others that you can think of, Tinger?
I think also to go along with that, if you plan on going away for the holidays, just the stress of getting everything organized, or if you have guests coming in, you want to make sure the house is clean. You want to make sure you have all the grocery shopping done. And all of those things are additional stressors that we tend to have during the holiday season.
And I want to throw in one. Maybe she didn't throw it in, maybe because this is not one of her stressors, but cooking and preparing. People get really stressed. I know people who feel like I have to cook, a huge meal, or there are certain dishes that I'm known for, and I just have to cook these, and I have to give this one to that person and that, and a lot of cooking and trying to incorporate just their daily lives into all of that. It can be a stressor for them, even though they may get it done. It can be a big stressor for them getting prepping and getting all of the ingredients and all those things and just cooking. We just tend to take for granted the finished product without really thinking about all that went into creating that finished product. And for some who really, really get into, some say, okay, I'm big on the gift buying. I like to go to the mall. I love that stress. For them, it could be a healthy stress, but there are people who really get anxious over just having to go to the store during the holidays and buy gifts. And then there are those who say, I don't necessarily buy gifts. I tend to give homemade gifts. And a lot of people, for them, that means cooking meals or desserts and sharing it. But there's a lot of times there's just a lot of time involved in that, and sometimes it becomes very stressful. So we wanted to kind of throw those things out to get you to understand, even though it's a holiday, those are things that could steal your joy at Christmas. Let's talk a little bit about loneliness, which obviously you say, okay, yeah, of course, if I'm feeling really lonely, then that has a negative connotation. So, yeah, that probably could steal someone's joy. And it not only can, but it often does. Because we hear the music in the stores, we hear it constantly, we see the movies on television, and they're constantly advertising what Christmas specials are coming up, and all of those types of events are going on, and we tend to forget there are some people who are just feeling lonely, and these are people who, for various reasons, have been wounded by either a dysfunctional relationship, or it can simply be they've gone through a divorce, or as we talked about last month, they have experienced some grief, some loss, and they're trying to do all of this, and they're expected, because of the way the holidays are designed, they're expected to have this joy at Christmas, and for them, it can be very challenging, very, very challenging, because their lives have been altered, and they feel like, where's the joy in all of this? Everybody else who has someone, and I'm trying to rekindle or rebuild my relationships with others, and I'm just not ready yet, because I prefer at this time of the season to be by myself. So loneliness can steal your joy, but there are some antidotes to being lonely. We'll talk a little bit about this more, but some antidotes to just not being by yourself. But also taking into account, if this is you, just trying to isolate yourself because you are going through is not the answer. Because if you don't realize it, it will very easily cause your perspective of Christmas to change, your whole overall perspective to change. But we understand that even though the holidays, the festive music, the lights, and all of these things do exist, and it's a beautiful time of the year as the world celebrates the birth of Christ, there are those who feel like I see the lights, I hear the music, but within me, I just feel lonely. Okay.
So, a couple of more guests that are uninvited and that steal our joy at Christmas. One being unfulfillment. For many, at the end of the year during this Christmas season, it's just kind of a sigh of relief And for some people, it's a time for them to reflect on things that they were able to accomplish during the year. But a lot of times during the year, we get so caught up in the world culture and being so busy with doing all the things that the world says we should get done that we forget about us and the things that we need for fulfillment. So it leaves us feeling empty, during this time of the year when we're supposed to have so much joy. We just, feel empty, and we continue to just fill those gaps with unnecessary things, just to fill that hole. And we just keep stuffing and stuffing and stuffing, thinking, well, surely this will ease the pain. This will bring me joy. But we find out when we're not living out our purpose, then we're going to still have that unfulfillment, and we feel like we didn't get what we needed to do accomplished. So we have to be responsible enough for us to take a look and reflect, what are my goals? What is it that I would like to accomplish? And those are some of the reasons why the unfulfillment happens, is because we're just so busy trying to do what the world says we should do versus what our inner self and what God is telling us that we are created to do. So unfulfillment is one of those other guests that steal our joy at Christmas.
And I want to add, unfulfillment, not only does it come into, steal our joy of Christmas, but then when we are practicing that unfulfillment, we tend to, as you said, we have those voids in our lives, and we tend to want to fill them with things. For one, we often tell people that don't last, things that don't last. Mm-hmm. So you have to be really careful, because you say, I just oftentimes want to numb. If I'm feeling stressed and lonely, then I have unfulfillment. I want to numb. I just don't want to feel. I just want to numb it. And, people tend to resort to turning to alternative methods that not only are unfulfilling because they're temporary, but they tend to leave a scar. So we want to just kind of caution you when you have that unfulfillment and trying to fill that void. Be careful about those things that you could very easily, especially during the holiday, people get involved in drinking excessively. They're starting I want to do some drugs. In other words, I just don't want to feel the reality of where I am. So these are things that do come, like she said, that unfulfillment is another one I wanted to mention. The void, the black hole. Be careful how you feel that black hole.
Yes, because we continue to, once we get started on that path, we just tend to keep going. Mm-hmm. And we would not want that for anybody. So the other joy stiller we want to talk about is being tired. Tiredness. A lot of people, just the thought of the holiday season makes you exhausted because you're trying to get in all the activities, get all the shopping done, get all the cooking done. And sometimes we don't realize that we only have a certain amount of resources, to manage our energy, to manage our money, and to manage our time. And we try to extend our 24 hours, and we can't do that. So we don't get proper sleep. We don't get proper rest. And a lot of times we we'll trade off one for the other. Well, I will work 15 extra hours this weekend so that I can have Monday off. But when Monday comes, we're so exhausted that we don't even feel like going to spend the extra money that we made. So sometimes we have to tell ourselves, what's more important to me at this stage in my life? Is it to make money? Is it to have relationships? Is it for me to be physically and mentally healthy? All of those things work together. And when we are overexhausted, we are not functioning well at all. So we think, if I spend more time doing this or I spend more time doing that, it's going to open the door for this to happen. And a lot of times that's not true reality. So we have to be careful and to remember that we only have a limited amount of time. We only have a limited amount of money. And we only have a limited amount of energy. So those are 4 of the guests we hope that you will not have show up at your house this Christmas. And in order to do that, we want to provide you with some strategies that will help you in preventing this from happening to you this holiday season. So we want to take a look at strategies for putting the C back into Christmas. So the first one is to communicate. In looking at communicate, it is important for you to tell people exactly how you feel where you are. You may have had a loved one that has passed. You might be going through some relationship issues, but you have to acknowledge these feelings. We understand that it's Christmas, but at the same time, you can't just say it's Christmas, so I can't be sad anymore. So that's the first thing, is being able to communicate how you really feel. And when you're able to do that, then others will rally around and help you to get through this sad time. The second one is to celebrate. Christmas is the time that, we can enjoy the blessings that we have. It's okay to laugh. It's okay to have joy. It's okay to go to the movies, watch that. One of Stanley's favorite movies during Christmas is the Christmas Lampoon Vacation. And it's funny. So it's a time to celebrate and rejoice. And it's a time for us not to just focus on the pressures that we have or the problems that we have. Sometimes it takes us joining in with other people to be able to celebrate, to help bring joy to others. And it's easy for us to say, you're not going through what I'm going through. And we all go through differently. But that doesn't have to take away of having joy for that season. It's okay to celebrate and to have a good time. Next is the next C is to connect. connect with people instead of being alone. We talked about loneliness being one of those unexpected guests. So when we connect with other people, there are so many different activities that you see in the community during this Christmas season. It is so much better when we can connect with other people. It might mean going maybe to a nursing home and connecting with someone there that may not have a family. We are designed to be in relationships with others. That is how God designed us. And, we have the opportunity to get plugged into healthy relationships through our churches, through our community outreach programs. There are lots of ways that we can combat loneliness. And one of the best ways is being able to connect with others.
And want to add, I have a sister, and she, several years ago, her kids had gotten grown and had moved out of the home and away from home, a distance away from home. She began going to a shelter and serving Christmas dinner and serving on that morning. And so she and one of her friends, they would go, and that was one of the ways, because her two children are now grown and have moved away. So that was one of the ways for her connecting, and then connecting with people. And it just kind of, for her, it just made her feel that much better about the season. Being able to go back out and give back to the community, even though it was Christmas. And that's something that she has done for several years, to go out and to serve others, help to serve others Christmas dinner.
And that leads into our next C, which is care. Care about people instead of material things. People are so appreciative when you help them, especially when they are in need at Christmas. We have helped out with the Salvation Army. We have helped in the homeless shelters. And for these people, a lot of them feel that they don't have hope, that there's no one that cares about them. So this is a way to bring the C back into Christmas. It's showing others that you care. And if you're not sure of how to get plugged in, just turn on the TV. They will have lots of different community outreach programs where you can get plugged into. You can call your area churches to get plugged in. The Salvation Army is one of the biggest gift givers at Christmas. So let people know that you care about them. And when you show people that you care, the return that you get is so much more than the material things that you could buy within the store. Our next one is to choose. Choose to be healthy. We talked about tiredness being one of those unwelcome guests, along with, being stressed. And we have to choose that we're going to be healthy. We have to choose that we're not going to overeat at every Christmas party. We're not going to excessively drink. We're not going to stay up every night and not get proper rest. We control our destiny. And all of those things come about when we make good choices. A lot of times when we don't choose to make good choices, especially during the winter months, our bodies will start to break down. And that's when a lot of people start to get sick. They get colds, they get flu, they get a number of illnesses. And a lot of them are associated with how we're eating, how we're resting, how we're doing exercise, and how we are mentally staying healthy as far as our stress levels. Because a lot of people don't really know, or they choose not to take it in that stress can cause you to become physically ill. And it most certainly can affect your body, especially if you have any other medical conditions. So we have to make wise choices.
Thank you for watching Counselors Connection, Real Talk. Tune in next time for part 2 of today's episode.
A mystery. Let's share a mystery. Together we can find the answer. Together